Hello everyone and welcome to another solo video. Now, this is a very important topic and close to a lot of our hearts. The official state of the ranked experience in Pokemon Unite. What is it like as a solo queue player? What is it like as a duo queue, trio queue, 5-stacker? Everyone has a different experience, and today I'm going to talk about these experiences as I've experienced pretty much all of them throughout different seasons. I have accounts I play on solo, I have accounts I play on duo, trio, and 5-stack as well. So I've gotten a large experience of exactly how the rank system works in this game and my feelings, and I've also gotten to curate a lot of the community's experience. So, okay, I'm all about upfronting the knowledge. So what we're going to talk about today is what the community has said about the experience and what I've gone about in my own experience. And then we're going to compare that with what I think needs to change in rank, because I think changes are needed. Some of the experiences have been terrible. Some of them have been good. And we're going to talk about what is working well. And then finally, we'll lead that off in, is this good? Is this bad? Where are we going? All right, great. Now that I've fronted you with all of that, I would love to give a like and a subscribe and a comment down below, and we're all gonna love it and get into it. And maybe like 30 likes today. That kind of PogChamp. All right, let's get into it. So, what has the community said about the current ranked experience? Well, to be frank, nearly everything I've seen in the YouTube comments has been talking about their terrible experience. Nearly everyone has said that the game feels very hard to play and is frustrating in solo queue. And you know what? I understand and feel that. In the few games I played as solo queue, it's been very, very disappointing. You get teammates who are trolling and intentionally griefing you, and then you also get situations where teammates are literally AFK. Look, there's a bunch of problems, and I understand, and I find it's a valid experience to be upset at how ranked is played out. For a solo queue setting, you don't have any friends to lean on or people to back on. There are shining lights, and of course, everyone's gonna have their own rank story where they do an incredible solo carry or they met good teammates. And I think that there's a lot of Unite creators who are able to find that balance in their own solo queue games. But for me, myself, I've had a lot of bad solo games, and it just is the nature of the game at times. And use as the level you're able to take of this is gonna determine your fun. If you're able to, hey, look, every 2 good games, I'm gonna have a bad game. If you can take that and you're like, oh, well, that's all right, you're probably going to have more fun than someone who is 1 for 1. Oh, okay, I have a good game and a bad game and I'm okay with that. They're going to be upset very, very easily. So yeah, generally the community has said it's quite a hard experience. And we're just coming out of the Mewtwo Zacian meta. Zacian's still super strong. Mewtwo's still super strong. They're both in the games. You have players who are one-tricking these characters and still unable to really perform at the basic level, which kind of frustrates the regular viewer and the players as well, because hey, look, they're playing the strongest characters in the game and they're still trying to basically troll and grief your game, and it can feel very frustrating and the game is rigged and set up against you. And I understand that's another valid experience and thought, and something I think Timmy should try to look at. There has to be some segregation between ranks. It feels these skill-based matchmaking isn't entirely working, and of course we'll never really know the answer to that, and that's always been a question. And I think even in Chris Hero's most recent videos, how to find good teammates. Look, everyone is having a problem with this. It's not just you, you're not alone. It is a tough experience. So what have High gone through? So we've now identified, most of the community has had trouble in ranked, and a lot of people are dropping the game for this reason. Google reviews are saying it, Nintendo gets a lot of harassment about this as well. There is some validity to these concerns. And so what have I experienced, right? So that's a big overarching topic here. And in my solo games, I've had some of the worst solo games. I've had from intentional griefers to AFKs to trolls to hidden MMR losses, which is a whole, I don't even know. It feels like a whole snake theory. I've gone deep into some type of algebraic mind, and we're doing secret, I don't know, how to say it, conspiracy theories on why I'm losing. I'm oh, well, this guy is paid by the internet to troll me. And it gets to that point because players are just how they have a bad day, they have a bad game. And when your MMR is higher, you can know what kind of players are in your team. I live in a pretty small region in OCE, and we know most of the players who are playing. And consistently, I'm getting players who I know are a little bit worse than my opponents, and that's okay. I'm still able to have a positive 60% win rate, but that's still there's a still struggle in that, and it does feel frustrating. A lot of the games I do play now are trying to do duos and trios of friends and people who are close to me, and we just have fun and try to play new little combos. But it's very hard because I know the other team is also really trying to win, and my team is already stacked against me, especially when I queue with a friend. So my experience has not been great. It has not been great at all. I do believe the draft will fix a lot of what I feel are the main issues in ranked, which I guess we're going to talk about in a second. But yeah, my current ranked experience has not been pleasant, and it's definitely not been what I'd love it to be. If the ranked experience was better, I do believe there'd be more players playing this game. I do believe the game would be way more enjoyable, and I think you'd actually be able to use ranked as some sort of like a proper measuring stick. Because right now, look, I think we've gone on about this in another video, but the ranked rewards and the way ranked works in this game doesn't feel as rewarding as it should be. You should feel rewarded for hitting 1600, and a tiny sticker is never going to do that for me. I'm expecting a skin, I'm expecting some type of celebration, and I've even read a few YouTube comments saying like, like the other games give all these incentives, all these bonuses, and it just feels so horrible, right? Like that maybe it feels like we're not cared about as much. I know that that's not probably Timmy's intention, and if it was their intention, it would be very silly of them. Because, as fans, we're the ones who want these benefits because we want to keep playing the game. We'll be happy to drop money if you give us the reason to. Anyway, so passing through my own experience, what do I think needs to change in ranked? Well, of course, something I've advocated for heavily in the past, and I'm so glad it's coming. In February, we'll finally get ranked draft. And I think that's going to completely change how the game plays out, how all these matchups and interactions will work, and I think the players overall will be way happier than before. However, I think in tandem with this, there's a few things that need to change. Skill-based matchmaking needs to be looked at closely, and I think it needs to be very visible. I think ELO has to be visible from player to player in the lobby, and it has to be seen in the lobby screen. Some type of indication. I need to know if the person who's called Central is 1100 and like 7,000 games and is just gonna troll, all right? Like, I need to know that, because then I can pick something safe in the lane. Like, we can make varieties. I can't be using outside Unite API to figure out everything. Like, and a big shout out to Unite API. They're run by a lovely team, and Icarus Twine is one of the greatest developers I've seen. Like, he's really caring about the community. So when I see this, like, I really hate having to use the software, even though, like, the software is great and made by the community, but I'd love it to be in the game as much as possible. And the API, of course, helps round out the edges if you want to look at it when you're not at the Switch, everything, not at the phone, everything. It's all there, right? But when I'm opening the game, I want to actually know this stuff when I'm going into my game. I want to know whose role is what. If the player on my team only plays Central Area, I'm happy to give up Central Area. Even though I'm a Central Area player mainly. Like, I'm happy I can play other roles. I'm happy to do that because I want my team to win. That should be the ultimate goal. And I feel like the current ranked game mode is not catered towards, like, fostering this winning mentality and environment. Another thing I think needs to change is really, like, just how the queue system works. Like, we can't be queuing into other regions, or it has to be, like, a well-known choice. Being able to actively know, hey, look, I'm queuing into Asia, or hey, look, I'm queuing into OC1. Like, you being able to actually select your server will make a huge difference, and it will prevent lag spikes. So now that we talked about a bunch of weaknesses, what is actually working well in ranked? Well, hey, look, the ranked system is actually rather fast. You get games quickly. I understand it's a 10-minute game. Until you start hitting the top 100, 200 players, like, you're gonna get games in, like, within 1 minute, a lot of the time. It'll be mainly on your server. And this is actually quite nice. Like, this is my experience with this. I haven't heard too much about the community saying this, like, times are too long. I've heard, of course, the matchmaking's bad, but I haven't heard that the time to get a game is too long. And that's a good thing, always. That means the game is still flourishing, there's people wanting to play, and you got things bouncing around there. So that's working. I think something that's also really nice that they currently do is they do show some basic indication of early screen communication. And whether this is going to be involved in the future, I think that's something that does need to be evolved and done better. But there is some type of communication, and they finally added microphones to ranked. However, microphones are mainly used to abuse other players, and that is, I think, terrible, and I really wish it would stop. Praying that with the Switch 2 and advancements to the mobile version of the game and the China release and all these other reasons I have hopium, once they all come in, the communication will get better and the game will actually feel more fluid. And like when you get these ranked games, it should be similar to competitive experiences to some extent. It should feel like when you play against the top rank 1 player in a solo queue game, it should feel like the rank 1 player is like actually like doing something. Right now, when I play my games at least, I feel like, the 9 other players in the lobby are all at the same level, and sometimes I'm like above, or like it's quite frustrating. I think the ranked experience has been rather poor this year. It was never that great the year before in 2022, and it was okay for a moment in 2021. It felt like there was matchmaking. It definitely felt like I could win on a Smurf consistently by myself in Asia. Now it feels a lot worse. Maybe because of the new characters and, you know, there was a bit of unwashing to do on my end and I was rather bad. But yeah, it does feel like this current meta and maybe like the way things play out as well in ranked, a little bit jankier. So I do think that there's some precedent to say that this system will work well in the future. It will be okay. But for now, hey, let's just put it pretty simply. I think it needs to get better. I think they can do it. Draft is coming. That's a huge change. And, you know, once Draft hits the scene, we don't know what kind of change it will really do. Everything will change with Draft. So I want everyone to keep that in mind. Maybe we will be able to actually activate the skill-based matchmaking to some degree. But for now, all I want you guys to think about is, yes, the ranked experience, it is probably worth playing if you enjoy the game. But if you don't enjoy Pokemon Unite, you probably shouldn't touch ranked because it's just going to make you go insane. All right. Lots of love, guys. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next video.